The U.S. economy is changing, and some states are facing serious economic challenges that could affect everything from real estate to cost of living. In this video, we're breaking down the top 10 most financially strained states, where budget cuts, financial issues, and economic disparity are making life tougher for residents. These are the 10 states going downhill, struggling with state government finances and uncertain futures. What's causing these states to decline? How does this impact state rankings and living conditions? Watch until the end as we reveal the states facing the biggest economic struggles in America. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe to Virtual Travel by Brian, and ring the notification bell for more in-depth economic insights. Let's jump right in. Number 10. Tennessee. Tennessee is one of the fastest-growing states in the country, attracting people like tourists to a Nashville honky-tonk. But here's the kicker. A booming population doesn't always mean a booming economy, and Tennessee is living proof. On one side, you've got Nashville, the tech and music capital, where some folks are cashing in big. On the other side, you've got rural Tennessee, where making ends meet feels like playing financial Jenga. One wrong move, and everything crumbles. With a median household income of $67,631, Tennessee is just barely keeping up with the national average. But here's the problem. A huge chunk of jobs in the state are in low-wage service industries. Think about it. Tourism, retail, and hospitality drive Tennessee's economy. And last time I checked, waitressing at a barbecue joint isn't exactly a six-figure gig. Meanwhile, the cost of living is creeping up faster than a raccoon on a hot tin roof. Tennessee is one of the few states that doesn't have a state income tax. Sounds great, right? Not so fast. Less tax revenue means fewer funds for public services, so when budget cuts come around, they hit education and healthcare like a wrecking ball. Public education? Let's just say Tennessee isn't winning any spelling bees. Teacher pay ranks in the bottom half of the country, and schools in lower-income areas struggle to keep up. Meanwhile, the state's healthcare system is about as sturdy as a folding chair at a family barbecue. Rural hospitals are closing, and healthcare access is becoming a luxury. Tennessee is at a crossroads. It's attracting new businesses and residents, but without proper economic planning, it risks becoming a state where the rich thrive and the working class barely survives. The question is, will Tennessee invest in infrastructure, education, and economic diversity, or will it keep relying on tourists, country music, and hot chicken to pay the bills? Right now, the financial outlook looks shakier than a novice line dancer. Tennessee, you might want to check your bank account because the road ahead isn't looking too smooth. Number 9. South Carolina. South Carolina is one of the most financially strained states in the country, with a poverty rate of 14.68%. and a median household income of just $67,804, which sounds decent until you realize that rent prices are climbing faster than a squirrel up a palmetto tree. South Carolina's economy is like a two-trick pony. Manufacturing and tourism keep the lights on, but neither guarantees stable, high-paying jobs. Sure, the state is home to auto plants and aerospace factories, but not everyone is lucky enough to snag one of those gigs. Meanwhile, tourism is king, bringing in billions every year. But here's the problem. Beach vacations and golf courses don't pay the bills for everyone. Think about it. How many waitresses at Myrtle Beach or hotel clerks in Charleston do you think are rolling in six-figure salaries? Exactly. Low-wage service jobs dominate the state, and income disparity is becoming a real problem. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is getting wider, and it's not just because of the humidity. While cities like Charleston, Greenville, and Columbia are seeing some economic growth, rural South Carolina is still waiting for its invitation to the party. Many small towns lack access to decent health care, quality education, and stable employment opportunities. Basically, all the things you need for a thriving economy. And when young people move away for better prospects, these areas struggle even more. South Carolina used to be a cheap place to live. Keyword, used to be. In recent years, housing prices have shot up like a bottle rocket on the 4th of July, making it harder for middle and lower-income families to afford decent homes. But while the cost of living keeps rising, wages are stubbornly staying put. It's like trying to fill up a bucket with a hole in it. No matter how much you earn, it never seems to be enough. What's next for South Carolina? Will it invest in higher-paying industries, improve rural access to economic resources, and address housing affordability? Or will it continue to lean on low-wage jobs and tourism while hoping the economy magically fixes itself? Right now, the state is skating on thin financial ice, and with budget cuts and economic disparity widening, let's just hope it doesn't fall through. Until then, at least the sweet tea is still cheap. Number 8. Oklahoma. Oklahoma, land of cowboys, country roads, and an economy that just can't catch a break. If financial hardship had a mascot, Oklahoma would be riding it to the sunset. With a poverty rate of 15.27% and a median household income of just $62,138, the Sooner state is sooner or later going to have to figure out how to fix its money problems. The state's economy is about as stable as a rodeo bull, and the reason? A dangerous reliance on oil and gas. When energy prices are high, Oklahoma is living large. But when they crash, well, let's just say it's not pretty. The entire state's financial well-being is tied to the fate of the oil industry like a bad marriage, and whenever prices drop, so do jobs, state revenue, and everyone's mood. Oklahoma treats oil and gas like that one ex you just can't quit, no matter how many times they disappoint you. While energy jobs bring in big bucks, the state has failed to diversify its economy, meaning when oil prices take a dive, so does Oklahoma's financial health. And this isn't a what if, it happens all the time. Instead of investing in other industries like tech, manufacturing, or renewable energy, the state keeps betting the farm on fossil fuels, hoping things will turn around. Spoiler alert, boom and bust cycles don't make for a stable future. If you're hoping for top-tier public education, well-funded healthcare, or solid infrastructure, Oklahoma might not be your dream destination. Budget cuts have hit public services hard, leaving schools underfunded, hospitals struggling, and roads looking like an obstacle course for your tires. Teachers in Oklahoma have been protesting for years because their salaries are among the lowest in the country. And as for healthcare, it's a mess. The state has one of the highest uninsured rates in the U.S., and rural hospitals keep shutting down, meaning some residents have to drive over an hour just to see a doctor. As if things weren't already rough, let's talk about tornadoes, droughts, and everything else Mother Nature throws at this state. Oklahoma is part of Tornado Alley, and every year destructive storms rip through towns, causing millions in damages. Droughts? Check. Ice storms? Yep. When it comes to natural disasters, Oklahoma is playing on hard mode, and every disaster comes with a price tag that the state can't afford. Oklahoma is struggling to provide basic public services, handle natural disasters, and support low-income residents, all while hoping oil prices magically solve everything. Until Oklahoma figures things out, residents might need to hang on tight, because this financial roller coaster isn't slowing down anytime soon. Number 7. Alabama. With a poverty rate of 15.98%, a median household income of just $62,212, and a state budget held together by duct tape and prayer, Alabama's economy is looking about as sturdy as a folding chair at a family barbecue. And while the state might boast some of the best tailgates in the country, when it comes to economic stability, let's just say the scoreboard isn't looking too good. If economic progress were a race, Alabama would be the guy still stretching while everyone else is halfway to the finish line. The state has struggled with slow economic growth for years, with major industries like manufacturing and agriculture providing jobs, but not exactly high-paying ones. Job opportunities are there, but wealth isn't exactly spreading like gravy on a biscuit. Rural areas in Alabama have it even worse. While cities like Birmingham and Huntsville are trying their best to modernize, rural Alabama feels like it's stuck in 1985. Good-paying jobs? Limited. Access to education and healthcare? Also limited. A bright financial future? Let's just say it's not looking too sunny. If you want to talk about income and racial disparities, Alabama is practically a case study. The wealth gap in this state is wider than the SEC football divide. Some folks are living comfortably in high-end suburbs, while others are barely scraping by in rural towns where job opportunities are as rare as a snowstorm in July. And let's be real, Alabama's history of racial inequality still plays a role in economic disparity today. Many minority communities continue to face lower wages, fewer job opportunities, and underfunded schools, making it even harder to break out of poverty. Without real investment in economic mobility, this gap is only going to get worse. If you think Alabama's economy is struggling, wait until you hear about its public schools. Alabama has been underfunding its education system for years, and guess what? That doesn't exactly set students up for success. The state consistently ranks near the bottom in national education rankings, and low teacher salaries aren't helping either. With fewer resources and outdated facilities, students in lower income areas are at a serious disadvantage. And here's a wild thought. Maybe if Alabama invested in better education, it wouldn't have such a struggling economy in the first place? Just saying. Alabama needs to address income inequality, invest in education, and create high-paying jobs, or it can keep pretending that football championships will fix everything. At the moment, Alabama's financial future looks shakier than a plate of Jell-O at a church potluck. Will the state finally make the investments needed to turn things around? Or will it keep living in the past while the rest of the country moves forward? Only time and the state budget will tell. Number 6. Arkansas. Welcome to Arkansas, where the natural beauty is breathtaking, but the economy? Not so much. If you ever wondered what happens when a state leans way too hard on farming while neglecting things like job diversity and education, well, here we are. With a poverty rate of 16.08% and a median income of just $58,700, Arkansas is one of the most financially strained states in the country, and things aren't looking up anytime soon. Arkansas loves farming, and honestly, good for them. But here's the problem. Agriculture doesn't exactly bring in six-figure salaries for most workers. The state relies heavily on industries like rice, poultry, and soybeans, which keeps food on tables but doesn't necessarily fatten up anyone's wallet. Meanwhile, high-paying jobs in tech, finance, or healthcare? Yeah, those are a little harder to come by. So while the rest of the country is moving toward a modern economy, Arkansas is still out here acting like it's 1935, hoping the next crop yield will save the day. If Arkansas wants to compete economically, it might want to start with its education system. The state has some of the lowest educational attainment rates in the country, and let's be real, it's hard to attract good-paying jobs when the workforce isn't properly trained. Low graduation rates, underfunded schools, and a general lack of investment in higher education mean that many residents aren't equipped for modern high-paying industries. And here's the cycle. Without a strong education system, there aren't enough skilled workers for better jobs. Without better jobs, people stay in poverty. And when people stay in poverty, well, welcome to Arkansas's economy. Arkansas isn't just rural. It's really rural. A huge portion of the state's population lives in small towns where economic opportunities are as rare as a $5 gas price. If you don't live in Little Rock or Fayetteville, chances are your job market consists of minimum wage retail, factory work, or farming. And if you want to do something different, well, better pack your bags, because you're probably moving out of state. This lack of economic mobility keeps Arkansas in a financial chokehold. While bigger cities have at least some economic growth, small-town Arkansas is still waiting for prosperity to arrive, and it might not be coming anytime soon. If Arkansas wants to move forward, it's going to need to diversify its economy, invest in education, and actually build pathways to better-paying jobs. But right now, the state is stuck in the past, hoping that farming and blue-collar industries will magically fix things. Until that happens, Arkansas is going to stay financially strained, and residents will keep facing tough economic realities. But hey, at least the state still has great barbecue and scenic views, right? Silver linings. Wait, before we keep going, let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest reason these states are struggling? Drop a comment below, and let's talk about it. And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive into America's most financially strained states, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join Virtual Travel by Brian for more eye-opening videos on the places shaping America's future. All right, back to the list, and trust me, the next state might just shock you. Number 5, Kentucky. Kentucky's financial situation is shakier than a racehorse on roller skates. With a poverty rate of 16.61% and a median household income of just $61,180, the bluegrass state isn't exactly rolling in cash. Instead, it's struggling with job losses, an opioid crisis, and an economy that's about as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. Once upon a time, coal was king in Kentucky, and for years, mining jobs kept food on the table. But fast forward to today, the coal industry has been shrinking faster than a cheap suit in the dryer, leaving thousands of workers scrambling to find new jobs. And here's the problem. Those high-paying coal jobs weren't replaced with anything remotely close in salary. Meanwhile, manufacturing jobs are also disappearing because, surprise, companies are either outsourcing or automating everything. So unless you're lucky enough to work in bourbon production, which honestly is one of the few industries thriving, job opportunities in Kentucky are looking bleak. If there's one thing Kentucky really doesn't need, it's an opioid crisis. And yet, it has one of the highest overdose rates in the country. This isn't just a public health disaster, it's an economic nightmare. A significant portion of the working-age population is either struggling with addiction or out of the workforce altogether. And if people can't work, guess what? The economy suffers even more. It's a vicious cycle. Fewer jobs lead to financial stress, which leads to drug use, which leads to even fewer people being able to work. Kentucky's government has been throwing money at the crisis, but so far, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. Another reason Kentucky is struggling financially, its infrastructure is falling apart. Roads, a mess. Bridges, a disaster waiting to happen. Internet access, patchy at best. In rural areas, businesses are struggling to grow because basic necessities like high-speed internet and reliable roads are still a luxury. And here's the real kicker. The state doesn't have the money to fix any of it. Budget cuts keep slashing public projects, leaving residents to deal with roads that feel more like obstacle courses and a job market that's stuck in the past. Kentucky needs a serious economic makeover. It can't rely on coal forever. It needs to address its opioid crisis, and it has to start investing in infrastructure if it ever wants to attract new industries. But right now, the state is just trying to stay afloat. Until things turn around, Kentucky will keep feeling like a bourbon hangover. Rough, disoriented, and not entirely sure what happened the night before. Number 4. West Virginia. West Virginia, where the mountains are high, but the wages are low. If John Denver were writing Take Me Home Country Roads today, he might have added a verse about economic decline, the disappearing workforce, and the state government frantically searching under couch cushions for extra funds. With a poverty rate of 17.1% and a median household income of just $55,948, West Virginia is one of the most financially strained states in the country. For decades, West Virginia's economy relied on coal like a kid relies on candy. It was great while it lasted, but now there's a serious crash. Coal isn't the powerhouse it used to be, and as demand has declined, so have the jobs, wages, and overall financial stability of the state. The problem? West Virginia never really had a plan B. Instead of diversifying into tech, manufacturing, or other modern industries, the state stuck with coal until it was too late. And now, it's like showing up to a party after all the food is gone. Too little, too late. Here's another kicker. West Virginia isn't just losing jobs, it's losing people. The state's population has been shrinking for years, as young professionals pack up and head for places with better job prospects, higher wages, and functioning Wi-Fi. And when people leave, it creates a nasty economic chain reaction. Fewer workers mean fewer businesses mean less tax revenue, and less tax revenue means budget cuts to things like education and healthcare. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, except instead of snow, it's financial despair. West Virginia has one of the worst healthcare systems in the country, and that's not an exaggeration. The state leads the nation in health problems like obesity, diabetes, and opioid addiction. But getting proper medical care? That's easier said than done. Rural hospitals are closing, doctors are in short supply, and if you live in a small town, your closest medical center might be hours away. And if that wasn't bad enough, West Virginia also has one of the highest rates of opioid addiction, which only adds to the financial and social burden. What's next for West Virginia? The bad news? West Virginia's economic struggles aren't going away anytime soon. It needs to find new industries, keep young people from fleeing, and fix its healthcare system, all while dealing with a shrinking tax base. The good news? Well, at least the mountains are still beautiful. But unless major changes happen soon, the state's economy will continue to tumble down them. Number 3. New Mexico. New Mexico, the state that gave us Breaking Bad, breathtaking desert landscapes, and one of the highest poverty rates in the country. With a poverty rate of 18.55% and a median household income of just $62,468, this state is struggling harder than a tumbleweed in a windstorm. For a place nicknamed the Land of Enchantment, you'd expect a little more magic in the economy. Instead, New Mexico is stuck in a cycle of unemployment, budget cuts, and job markets that look about as lively as an abandoned ghost town. If you're looking for stable, high-paying jobs, New Mexico might not be your best bet. The state has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country, and even when jobs are available, they don't always come with big paychecks. New Mexico's economy relies heavily on government jobs, tourism, and oil and gas. But here's the problem. Government funding is unstable. One budget cut, and poof, there go hundreds of jobs. Tourism is seasonal. You can only sell so many alien souvenirs in Roswell before people stop showing up. Oil and gas, boom and bust cycles make it as reliable as a car with a busted engine. Meanwhile, big industries like tech and finance seem to have skipped right over New Mexico on their way to places like Texas and Arizona. That means fewer opportunities for young professionals who often leave the state in search of greener financial pastures. If there's one thing keeping New Mexico stuck, it's the education system. The state consistently ranks near the bottom in national education rankings, and that's a huge problem when it comes to workforce development. Think about it. If your schools aren't preparing students for higher-paying jobs, those students grow up without the skills needed to attract businesses to the state. It's a vicious cycle that keeps the job market weak, wages low, and economic disparity high. Like many struggling states, New Mexico is very rural. That means a lot of people live far away from economic centers, making job opportunities even harder to come by. In some areas, just finding basic services like healthcare or internet access can feel like an impossible task. And let's not forget, when people can't find work, they leave. New Mexico's population growth is slow, and young professionals are heading out in search of better opportunities elsewhere. Less workforce, less economic growth. New Mexico desperately needs to diversify its economy, fix its education system, and create more job opportunities. Otherwise, it's going to stay stuck in financial quicksand. For now, the sunsets are still beautiful, the food is still amazing, but the paychecks, well, they could use some work. Number 2, Louisiana. While the state knows how to throw a party, its economy looks like it's waking up from a decade-long Bourbon Street hangover. With a poverty rate of 18.65% and a median household income of just $58,229, Louisiana is struggling harder than a tourist trying to pronounce Chupatulas Street. Louisiana's economy is like that one couple that keeps breaking up and getting back together, completely dependent on oil and gas. And when the industry is booming, things seem fine. But the second oil prices take a nosedive, the state's finances start looking like a sinking shrimp boat. And let's not forget, as the world shifts toward renewable energy, Louisiana's dependence on fossil fuels is becoming less of a solid plan and more of a financial time bomb. Louisiana has some of the highest crime rates in the country. And let's be honest, that's not great for business. Companies don't exactly want to set up shop in a place where they might need a security team just to make a bank deposit. Then there's the corruption, which, let's face it, is practically a tradition at this point. The state has a long history of government scandals, budget mismanagement, and missing money, making it tough to get anything done. And the infrastructure? Oh, don't even get me started. Louisiana's roads and bridges are in worse shape than a beignet after 5 minutes in a powdered sugar storm. As if Louisiana's economy wasn't already wobbly, Mother Nature keeps throwing in extra challenges. Between hurricanes, flooding, and extreme weather, the state faces billions in damages every year, making it even harder to maintain financial stability. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a giant hole in the bottom. And guess what? Climate change is making things worse. meaning more storms, more damage, and more bills the state can't afford to pay. What's next for Louisiana? Louisiana needs to diversify its economy, clean up its finances, and find ways to make itself less vulnerable to natural disasters. Otherwise, it's going to keep dancing in the same financial circle, hoping for a miracle. For now, at least the food is still amazing, the culture is still rich, and if all else fails, well, there's always Mardi Gras. Number 1, Mississippi. And here we are, folks, the grand finale, the number 1 spot, the state that's holding on to economic hardship like it's a family heirloom. Welcome to Mississippi, where the poverty rate sits at a brutal 19.58%, and the median household income is a measly $54,203, the lowest in the country. If you thought things were rough in the other states on this list, Mississippi just said, "Hold my sweet tea." Let's start with jobs, or the lack of them. Mississippi relies heavily on agriculture and manufacturing, which sounds great in theory. But here's the problem. Farming and factory jobs just don't pay what they used to, and automation is slowly taking over. Plus, when you're competing with bigger states that have more investment and better infrastructure, you might as well be bringing a butter knife to a sword fight. And speaking of infrastructure, if you've ever driven through Mississippi, you've probably noticed the roads look like they lost a battle with a meteor shower. The state struggles with basic maintenance, making economic growth even harder. After all, how are businesses supposed to thrive when just getting to work feels like an off-road adventure? Then there's education and healthcare, 2 categories where Mississippi consistently ranks near dead last. Schools are underfunded, which means students aren't getting the education they need to break the cycle of poverty. And when it comes to healthcare, let's just say getting sick in Mississippi is a risky financial decision. Rural hospitals are shutting down, and access to care is about as reliable as a used car salesman's handshake. And the cherry on top? The cost of living might be low, but so are the wages. It's like winning a contest where the grand prize is a discount coupon for something you can't even afford. Now that we've taken this financial horror tour through America's most struggling states, the big question is, what can be done? States like Mississippi need better education, more diverse industries, improved infrastructure, and policies that actually help working-class people. And for those who live in these states and want better opportunities, it's worth exploring what's out there. What do you think? Have you lived in one of these states? Are you planning to move? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown, and don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening videos. Until next time, stay informed, stay aware, and if you're driving through Mississippi, maybe invest in some really good shock absorbers.